The words hung in the chilling silence like an uninvited ghost between us. "We are going in a different direction," Bradley Miller from Human Resources said, his eyes fixed on some imaginary spot on the wall just above my head. He cleared his throat, a dry, nervous sound that echoed in the quiet room. "The leadership team believes fresh perspectives will benefit the division going forward." I stared at him, my mind struggling to process the sheer audacity of what he was saying. 22 years of unyielding loyalty, late nights, and broken promises to my family, suddenly reduced to a corporate buzzword. My voice remained remarkably steady when I finally spoke, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. "And who exactly is taking over my position as director of the division?" "Alyssa Barlow," Bradley replied, shifting in his seat. "She started with us 6 weeks ago in the market research department." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me, a cold wave of disbelief washing over my chest. "A young woman who had been with the company for less than 2 months? She is 31, Bradley corrected quickly, as if adding 3 years to her age made the decision any more logical or professional. "She has an impressive educational background with a brand new Master of Business Administration degree, and she brings the kind of innovative thinking that aligns with our new strategic vision." I let out a short, sharp laugh, a bitter sound that made him flinch slightly. "Innovative thinking? I built this entire division from the ground up when this firm was just a small office with 3 clients. Our client retention rate stands at 96%. What exactly needs innovation?" "This is not a performance issue, Julian," he said, sliding a thick blue folder across the polished mahogany desk. "We are transitioning you to the role of senior advisor. You will keep your full benefits package. The board and the chief executive officer highly value your deep institutional knowledge." Institutional knowledge. The words tasted like vinegar. "That is what you call 22 years of building personal trust with our accounts?" The crisis I averted when our largest client nearly walked away because of a software failure. The weekends and evenings I missed with my daughter Chloe to keep this place profitable. Bradley Miller's expression remained completely blank, a practiced mask of human resources professionalism. "Your new workspace has been prepared, Julian. You can move your files and personal belongings today." The next morning, I stood at the threshold of the conference room and watched Alyssa Barlow settle into my high back leather chair. She was running her manicured fingers along the mahogany desk edge, arranging her belongings with a smug, self-satisfied smile. She placed a small potted succulent in the center, followed by a framed certificate from her business school and a motivational calendar. My new workspace, as it turned out, was a cramped desk in the far corner of the floor, half the size of my old office, with a view of the building's massive ventilation shafts instead of the winding river. The brass nameplate on my old door had already been changed from division director to senior advisor before I even arrived. The team meeting commenced at 9 o'clock. My team, the people I had hired, mentored, and protected for years, filed into the room. They avoided my eyes, their shoulders hunched with the awkwardness of collective guilt and betrayal. Alyssa stood at the head of the long table, occupying my usual spot. Her youth was painfully obvious, masked by a stiff, overly formal posture. "Good morning, team," she began, her voice pitched slightly too high, dripping with an eager, superficial energy. "I am incredibly excited to be leading this amazing department. I have spent the last few days reviewing our client portfolio, and I have some immediate thoughts on how we can restructure our approach to maximize scalability." I watched in silence as she pulled up a slide deck and began to stumble through our clients' names, mispronouncing several of them. "And our current work with the Moretti Group needs a major refresh," she announced confidently. "Moretti," I corrected quietly from my seat near the door. The family is very particular about the correct Italian pronunciation. 20 pairs of eyes swung toward me in an instant. Alyssa's smile tightened, her cheeks flushing red. "Right. Thank you for that, Julius." "Julian," I said softly. "Of course. My apologies." She laughed nervously, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "As I was saying, we need to modernize our touchpoints." I glanced down as my phone vibrated in my palm. The name on the screen made my pulse quicken. It was Enzo Moretti himself, the patriarch of the Moretti business empire and our most critical account. "First meeting confirmed for Tuesday at 8 in the morning," the text read. "Usual cafe." quite curious about the recent organizational updates I have been hearing of late. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, allowing myself the slightest invisible smile. In front of the room, Alyssa was still fumbling through a project timeline that she clearly did not comprehend. My fingers tapped quietly against my knee, counting down the seconds. 3, 2, 1. "Excuse me, Alyssa," Jason Cole from Finance interrupted, raising his hand. "But does this new timeline not conflict with the Moretti quarterly review?" Alyssa blinked, her smile faltering. "Well, I am sure we can adjust the dates. The Moretti review requires a full 8 weeks of meticulous preparation," Diana Foster from Analytics added, her voice sharp. "We always block out that time to analyze their supply chain data. It has been done this way for 9 years. The conference room grew painfully quiet as Alyssa shuffled through her printed notes, finding absolutely nothing to support her claims. This was only the first fracture in their new strategic vision. Before the corporate nightmare unfolded, I had poured my entire adult life into the firm. My name is Julian Vance. For 22 years, I had built the regional market division through relentless dedication, strategic patience, and an absolute commitment to the human side of business. I knew every client by their first name. I remembered their spouses' names, their children's birthdays, and the specific challenges they faced. I had climbed from a low-level research assistant to division director through pure results. I was 54 now, with silver running through my beard, marks of the stress and triumphs of a long career. My daughter Chloe, who was now 22, had grown up watching me work late into the night, often missing her weekend soccer games and school plays. "Just until we secure this contract, Chloe," I would always tell her, kissing her forehead. But the contracts never stopped, and the firm always demanded more. The signs of my displacement had been subtle at first, like slow cracks in a foundation. Our chief executive officer, Gerald Albright, had started inviting Alyssa to private executive lunches 5 months ago, without any explanation. My meeting invites began to vanish from my calendar. A technical glitch, the information technology department would claim with a shrug. Projects I had personally secured were reassigned to younger associates under the guise of bringing in digital natives who understood the modern landscape. Gerald had been obsessed with transforming the firm's image. "Digital natives understand the modern consumer," he would declare during board meetings, his eyes intentionally sliding past me to focus on the youngest analysts in the room. He conveniently ignored the fact that our proprietary analytics platform was my design. I had spent 3 years programming the base algorithm, ensuring it could cross-reference seasonal supply fluctuations with real-time consumer buying habits. It was the backbone of our division's predictive accuracy, yet Gerald spoke of it as if it had simply appeared overnight by some magic of the cloud. The younger analysts used it like a black box, unaware of the complex mathematics and thousands of client interviews that made the forecast reliable. This intellectual disconnect was what allowed someone like Alyssa to believe she could simply automate our custom relationships. After that first humiliating team meeting, Alyssa Barlow summoned me to her office, which was my former office. She had already replaced my professional achievement awards with her framed business school diplomas. "I need your help understanding the Moretti account," she said, her voice carrying a thin edge of panic despite her demanding posture. "They have requested a comprehensive strategic presentation for next week." I nodded, keeping my face entirely neutral. "The Moretti family values tradition and continuity above all else," I explained. "They will expect our standard quarterly review format, focusing on historical performance data. But I want to show them my new scalable model," she insisted, pulling up a flashy slide deck filled with automated transitions, animated graphs, and meaningless industry buzzwords. I watched her scroll through the slides, immediately identifying 6 critical errors in her market assumptions that would deeply offend the conservative Italian executives. "This is certainly a very different approach," I said carefully. "You do not like it," she countered, her eyes narrowing. "It is not about my personal preference, Alyssa. It is about understanding what works with this specific client." She leaned back in my old leather chair, her expression hardening. "Gerald hired me to modernize this division, Julian. We need fresh energy, not outdated methods." The message was loud and clear. I was considered obsolete. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, a glass of water untouched beside me. Chloe walked in and sat in the chair opposite me, looking at my tired face with deep concern. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked softly. "They replaced me," I said, the reality of the words still feeling heavy and foreign. "They gave my position to someone with less experience than you have in your college internship." Chloe's eyes flashed with anger. "That is absolute garbage. You built that department." She had seen how much of my life had been invested in that firm. She remembered the family vacations that were cut short and the times I had to step out of restaurants to deal with client crises. In her eyes, my dedication was supposed to be met with respect, not a cold demotion. I looked at her, realizing she was no longer a child but a mature young woman who understood the harsh realities of the professional world. She had completed her own corporate communications internship over the summer, giving her a fresh perspective on office politics. "Apparently, I am too established," I replied with a weary smile. "You mean you are too experienced and you know the business too well," she said fiercely. "Do not let them push you out without a fight. What is your plan?" I looked at my folder of client notes. "I am working on Plan B." "Good," she said, squeezing my hand. "Because you always taught me that when the rules of the game are rigged, you change the game itself." The next morning, I arrived at the office before 7, sitting at my small corner desk, quietly organizing my database. I prepared my favorite blend of dark coffee, watching the quiet workplace slowly wake up under the harsh fluorescent lights. At precisely 8:15, my phone lit up with a message from Jason Cole. An emergency meeting had been called. The Moretti Group was threatening to terminate their contract. Immediately after receiving a preliminary proposal, Alyssa had sent them without my review. 3 minutes later, Gerald Albright himself marched onto the floor, his face flushed. "Where's the Moretti file?" he demanded loudly, ignoring the staff members who were arriving. I continued to sort my documents, letting the chaos build around me. By 8:30, Gerald emerged from Alyssa's office and walked straight to my corner desk. "Julian," he said, his salesman smile looking incredibly strained. "We need your unique expertise on a highly sensitive matter right away." I looked up calmly. "How can I help you, Gerald?" "There's been a slight communication issue with the Moretti account," he admitted, lowering his voice. "Alyssa tried to introduce some updates, and there has been some unexpected pushback. We need you in the conference room. You know Enzo Moretti better than anyone in this building." I gathered my notebook. "Of course, Gerald. I am always happy to assist our clients." The atmosphere in the executive conference room was suffocating. Alyssa Barlow sat with her face completely pale, staring at the speakerphone in the center of the table. Gerald Albright sat beside her, tapping his pen rapidly against a legal pad. The line was open, connecting us to Enzo Moretti in Milan. "We have Julian Vance joining the call now," Gerald announced immediately. "Julian?" Enzo's deep voice boomed through the speaker, the cold tension instantly dissipating from his tone. "Buongiorno, my friend." Finally, a voice of sanity. "Buongiorno." "Enzo," I replied, speaking in fluent Italian as I asked about his family and his daughter Giada's studies at Oxford. We spoke for several minutes about personal matters, establishing the warmth and mutual respect that had defined our relationship for 9 years. Enzo mentioned how much he appreciated the custom reporting we provided, which helped his managers navigate regional regulations in Europe. He explained that his grandfather, who had started the business with a single warehouse, had always taught him that a contract is only as good as the trust between the men who sign it. I could feel Alyssa's eyes burning into me as I gently steered the conversation back to the business proposal, explaining that the slides she had sent were merely a draft of internal scenarios, and that their core services would remain untouched. By the end of the call, Enzo was laughing, his anger entirely forgotten. "This is why we remain with your firm, Julian. You understand the value of history and partnership." After we disconnected, Gerald let out a long breath of relief. "Masterful work, Julian. This is exactly why your advisory role is so critical." I smiled politely, standing up. "I am glad I could help, Gerald. If there is nothing else, I should get back to my transition tasks." As I walked out, I knew the trap had been set. Over the next 3 weeks, a clear pattern established itself. Alyssa would implement a new standardized process. Our clients would object to the cold, automated treatment, and Gerald would ask me to step in and salvage the relationship. I was always helpful, always professional, but I made sure to document every single interaction while maintaining a detailed record of Alyssa's management failures. The entire division relied on relationships I had nurtured for over 2 decades. These connections existed nowhere in the company's official systems because they were built on personal trust, not spreadsheets. 3 weeks after my demotion, Alyssa called me into her office. She had removed my old mahogany bookshelf, replacing it with a minimalist seating area and a small water fountain. She had also painted the walls a cold, sterile gray, erasing the warm oak tones that had made the room feel welcoming to visiting clients. The bubbling of the water did nothing to hide her growing anxiety. "I need the detailed background on the Montgomery account," she said sharply, skipping any pleasantries. "Helen Montgomery is refusing to discuss their contract renewal with anyone but you." I nodded slowly. "Helen values consistency," I explained. "Her logistics company was one of our first major partners." "I know that," Alyssa snapped. "I read the database file. What I need is whatever you know that is not in the system." I looked at her, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "Helen's son, Owen, has autism," I said quietly. "She schedules all of her meetings around his therapy sessions on Wednesdays and Fridays. She never takes business calls between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. She also prefers all data to be presented in simple visual charts, and she requires at least 4 days to process information before making a decision." Alyssa scribbled the notes down frantically. Why was none of this documented in the central database? Because it is personal information shared with me in confidence. Over 17 years of partnership, I replied. "You cannot put human relationships into a template." Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You kept this information to yourself to make yourself indispensable," she accused. I maintained eye contact, my voice calm and even. "I built these relationships by treating our clients like people, Alyssa. The information has always been available to anyone who bothered to ask." That evening, I called Helen Montgomery from my personal cell phone. "They actually demoted you for that child?" Helen's voice was full of disbelief. "Gerald has lost his mind." "She is trying her best," I said diplomatically. "Her best involves suggesting we hold our quarterly review during my son's therapy window," Helen said. "And when I declined, she asked if I could just reschedule his appointment. It was incredibly offensive. She also wanted us to drop our regional green initiatives because her automated system does not track environmental metrics. We pride ourselves on sustainability, and she wanted us to print thousands of pages of useless pamphlets just to satisfy some generic corporate checklist." "I apologize for the oversight, Helen." "Do not apologize for her, Julian. What is really going on? Why are they sidelining their most experienced director?" "They wanted a fresh perspective," I replied. "A cheaper one, you mean," she countered. "Our renewal is coming up next month. I can tell you right now, we will not be signing another agreement with them if you are not managing our account." I made a polite, neutral comment, but her words confirmed my strategy. My senior advisor role was nothing but a temporary staging ground to extract my knowledge before they let me go for good. The next morning, I handed Alyssa a folder of client notes. It was a carefully curated collection of basic corporate facts, completely omitting the deep personal insights that made the partnership successful. She flipped through the pages, frowning. "This is all?" "The essentials," I replied. "The rest is built through time." She dismissed me with a wave of her hand, clearly frustrated by her inability to control the situation. The cracks in the company's new structure were widening into chasms. That afternoon, our department gathered for the monthly progress meeting. I sat at a small desk in the back corner of the room, observing the dynamics. Alyssa stood at the front, projecting a slide, showing a rigid, standardized timeline for client touchpoints. "We need to eliminate the inefficiency of individual relationships," she declared. "The future of our firm lies in scalable, repeatable systems, not personal preferences." Jason Cole raised his hand. "But will that not alienate the clients who expect our customized personal service?" "Personalization can be coded into templates," Alyssa insisted. "We will create detailed client profiles and standard response protocols." I watched my former team members exchange worried glances. They knew what Alyssa refused to see, that our clients stayed with us because of the human connection. No database could replicate the trust built over 20 years of shared success. After the meeting, Diana Foster walked over to my corner desk. "This is going to be an absolute disaster, Julian," she whispered, looking stressed. "The Schultz Group told me yesterday that they chose us specifically because we do not treat them like a transaction. Now, Alyssa wants me to send them automated reports." I nodded. "Change is always difficult for clients. That is all you have to say?" Diana looked at me, shocked. "You built this entire division. Are you just going to sit there and watch her tear it down?" I met her gaze calmly. "I am a senior advisor now, Diana. Alyssa has the authority to run the department as she sees fit." Diana studied my face for a long moment, a sudden understanding appearing in her eyes. "You are planning something," she said quietly. I smiled slightly. "I am simply adapting to my new role." "Right," she said, not looking convinced at all. "Well, when this ship starts sinking, I hope you have a lifeboat ready for the rest of us." As she walked away, my phone buzzed with another message from Enzo Moretti. "Meeting request denied. Their new automated reporting is completely unacceptable." "What is happening to your company?" I put the phone away without replying. The structure was failing faster than I had anticipated. By the end of the first month under Alyssa's leadership, client complaints had tripled. 3 of our mid-sized accounts had already announced they were looking at competitors. Team morale was at an all-time low as Alyssa implemented rigid administrative reporting requirements that doubled everyone's workload. Gerald Albright began appearing in our department almost daily, his forced smile growing thinner with every visit. I remained in my quiet corner, completing my basic tasks while watching the division crumble. "You have to do something, Julian." Jason Cole cornered me in the break room. "Thorn Hospitality is threatening to walk away. That is a $5 million annual account." "I am sure Alyssa is working on a plan," I replied, stirring my tea. Jason lowered his voice. "The team is falling apart, Julian. People are updating their resumes. Diana Foster has an interview with a competitor next week. That piece of information made me pause. Diana was the most talented analyst we had. Losing her would be a fatal blow to the division's capabilities. "What do you expect me to do, Jason?" I asked quietly. "Something, anything," he said. "You always had a plan." I looked at him. "Plans require the right timing, Jason. Sometimes you have to let things run their course." He shook his head in frustration. "While you are waiting, we are losing everything you spent 22 years building." As he walked out, Alyssa appeared in the doorway, looking visibly exhausted. "I need you in my office, Julian," she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. I followed her into the office, noting the piles of unorganized folders and printouts covering the desk. "The quarterly performance reports are due to the board tomorrow morning," she said without looking at me. "I cannot make sense of these financial structures." "The structures you implemented last month?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "The structures that your team is clearly failing to support," she retorted. "The numbers do not add up. Client satisfaction is down by 42%, and our revenue projections are worse." I scanned the document she handed me. "This is not sabotage, Alyssa. It is the direct result of our new approach. We have lost 3 accounts, and Thorn Hospitality is about to leave." "Because your team has turned them against me," she cried, slamming her hand onto the desk. "We need scalable systems." Gerald agreed with me. "Then perhaps you should discuss the reports with Gerald," I suggested. Her eyes narrowed. "You are enjoying this, are you not? Watching me struggle from your quiet corner, the division failing proves you were right." I set the paper down. "I want this division to succeed. These are my clients and my people, but I am no longer in a position to direct strategy." "Then help me fix this report," she demanded, her voice bordering on desperation. "Make these numbers presentable so Gerald does not fire me tomorrow." I studied her for a moment. This was the exact leverage point I had been waiting to secure. "I will need full access to the client databases restored," I said, "and I want Diana Foster pulled from her current tasks to assist me overnight." Alyssa hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, just make it work. The board meeting is at 10 tomorrow morning." I walked out of her office, allowing myself a genuine smile. The pieces were moving exactly as I had planned. The quarterly board meeting unfolded exactly as I had designed. Alyssa Barlow stood at the front of the room, nervously clicking through the slides. Diana Foster and I had prepared. Every graph told a devastating story of a division in rapid decline. Client satisfaction had dropped by 42%, and new business acquisition was down by 28%. As you can see, Alyssa stammered, her voice shaking. We are experiencing some temporary transitional challenges. Gerald Albright's face had turned from concern to pure anger. Transitional challenges? This is a complete collapse, Alyssa. What is your plan to reverse this? She looked desperately at me, sitting quietly against the back wall. I kept my face blank, offering no assistance. I have developed a new standardized engagement framework, she began. Standardized. Vivian Sinclair, a key member of the board, interrupted. Our competitive advantage has always been custom service. Scalability is meaningless if we lose our core accounts, Gerald snapped. Thorn Hospitality is worth $5 million annually. I received a message from Maxwell Thorn yesterday stating they are reviewing their options. The room went silent. Perhaps Julian has some insights, Vivian suggested, turning to me. We all know his history with these accounts. I leaned forward. Our client relationships have been built on personal trust over 22 years, I said. Rapid, automated changes have made them feel undervalued. That is an understatement, Gerald muttered. This is a disaster. Alyssa's face was bright red. I was hired to modernize this division. You said we needed fresh perspectives. Gerald closed his laptop. We need immediate damage control. Julian, can you salvage the Thorn Hospitality account? I paused, letting the silence build. Possibly. Maxwell Thorn and I have a strong relationship. I could meet with him. Do it today, Gerald ordered, and review all other accounts. We will discuss your role later, Alyssa. As the meeting broke up, Alyssa confronted me in the hallway. You set me up, she whispered fiercely. That presentation was designed to destroy me. It presented the accurate data of your management, I replied calmly. I did not create the numbers, Alyssa. You did. She glared at me before walking away. I immediately called Maxwell Thorn. Julian, about time, he answered. What is happening at your firm? Growing pains, Maxwell. I would like to meet to discuss your concerns. Our contract renewal is next week, he said. I will not sign with a firm that treats us like a template. Let us have lunch tomorrow at our usual spot, I suggested. Fine, only because it is you, Julian. The next day, after a successful lunch where Maxwell agreed to stay on the condition that I personally managed his account, I returned to the office. Gerald Albright was waiting by my desk. Well, he asked. Maxwell Thorn has agreed to renew, I said. Gerald let out a massive sigh of relief. Excellent. Julian, we made a mistake. Once this stabilizes, we want to reinstate you as division director. Alyssa will be reassigned to an administrative role reporting to you. I let the silence stretch between us. That is a generous offer, Gerald. But I must decline. He stared at me in shock. Decline? But everything will go back to the way it was. Not everything, I said. My trust in this firm's leadership has been destroyed. You cannot expect 22 years of loyalty to be restored after being shoved into a corner. Gerald's face hardened. Are you resigning? I pulled a white envelope from my pocket and placed it on his desk. This is my formal resignation, effective immediately. And there is one more thing. As of yesterday, I have established my own independent consulting firm. Vivian Sinclair has already agreed to serve as our primary board advisor. Gerald's jaw dropped. You approached a board member? Actually, she approached me, I corrected. She recognized that the true value of this business lies in the relationships, not the corporate structure. My new firm will focus entirely on relationship-based client management. This is a violation of your non-compete clause, Gerald growled, his voice rising. Our legal team will sue you for everything you have. I smiled, pulling out a copy of our employment agreement addendum from last November. You mean the restrictive covenant you claimed I signed? I never signed this document, Gerald. I was in Chicago on the date of this digital signature. My lawyers have already run a forensic audit on the security certificate. The signature was authorized using Alyssa's login credentials, copying my signature from a previous performance review. Under California Penal Code Section 470, that constitutes forgery. And under established contract law, any agreement obtained through forgery is void ab initio. It is completely invalid. If your legal team wants to go to court, they will have to explain to a judge and the state attorney general why your new director forged a senior executive's signature to force a non-compete. Gerald turned to look at Alyssa, who had walked up behind him, her face completely drained of color. I stood up and adjusted my jacket. Oh, and you should know that Diana Foster and Jason Cole have also resigned, along with 15 other members of our department. They will be joining my new firm on Monday. The silence on the floor was absolute. You think you can just walk away? Gerald whispered. Sometimes, Gerald, relationships matter more than resources, I said. As I walked toward the elevators, Vivian Sinclair caught up with me. I look forward to our first board meeting on Tuesday, Julian, she said. I smiled. As do I, Vivian. 4 months later, my new firm occupied the top floor of a beautiful brick building overlooking the river. We had already secured 9 of our major former accounts, including the Moretti Group, the Montgomery Group, and Thorne Hospitality, and we had added 14 new ones. Alyssa Barlow had been let go shortly after my resignation, and Gerald Albright was now forced to manage the failing department himself. I sat at my desk, looking out at the morning sun reflecting on the water. My phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. Just finished my first week at the new office. Celebration dinner tonight, Dad? I smiled, typing my reply. The best plan B was never about destruction. It was about building something better with the people who valued the journey.